Well, what if I told you that in the food delivery game, as well as the driving game, by the way, local knowledge means everything. You see, here's the apps themselves, Uber Eats or DoorDash, excuse me, they don't know the local areas as well as we as drivers do. So the direction that they give you and what's in your best interest are not aligned. And again, in this case, it's not really intentional. In this case, they just don't have, they have too much scale and too much national concerns to really be concerned about what's going on in Forest Lake, Minnesota, for example. But we'll fill in the blank of whatever town you happen to be in. They're not concerned with any of those types of things, and they can't be. That would not be a fair ask in this particular instance. But what you can do as a local driver, you can take local information and use that to your advantage. I'm going to be very specific about one that happened on Tuesday night of this week. And what that is I was in a situation where I had picked up an Uber Eats order already and was on my way to the location. I drove to get into the neighborhood, and a county sheriff's office was there to block the road. To get in, nobody could get in to the neighborhood. I tried to call the customer, tried to text them, no luck. So I called Uber support, as anyone else would or should do in this situation. They're saying, the officer told me that there was some kind of an incident going on in that neighborhood. So I called Uber support, okay, and the support rep asked the usual questions. And I explained to them that, the county sheriff was blocking the road in. I couldn't reach the customer. There was no way for me to achieve that. Here's what gets interesting. Next question he asked me is, can you use the navigation app to get a different way in or out of the neighborhood? I already knew the answer to this question because I'm very familiar with the area. You see, this neighborhood is on a peninsula that sticks out into a fairly large lake in the region. The problem is I can legitimately and truthfully answer that the road that directs you to get in and out of this area on is the only way in or out. There is no back way in to this particular neighborhood or community, as they call it. It's a little larger than your typical neighborhood, by the way. There's about maybe a couple thousand people in it. So it's a peninsula that sticks into a lake with only one way in and one way out, and that was the way. It was blocked by the county sheriffs. I can't reach them. I couldn't reach the customer. They knew I had called and tried to reach them that way. Tried to text, tried to reach them that way. No luck. If the customers in question were actually the ones involved in this law enforcement situation, that would be interesting to find out eventually. But of course, I had no idea at that time, but I had to be able to explain to them with a straight face exactly what was going on, and therefore I was able to get the order canceled. And of course, they let me keep the food. Local knowledge always matters the most in this game. It even matters in the driving game of passengers. So I'm going to give Monday afternoon as an example here. I was getting my ride home from MSP Airport up here to Forest Lake. That's about an hour trip, by the way. It's about 50 miles from the airport to here. Now, on the way down on Thursday afternoon, of course, the driver tried to take a longer route. I called 911 under the guise of kidnapping, but the next driver who picked me up from the point where I got dropped off explained to me that the driver was trying to squeeze extra money out of Uber by taking me a long direction. Again, local knowledge matters because in this case, I knew that he was not taking me the right direction. And the navigation was telling him to go different directions. And he kept trying to go longer and longer and longer until I was like, until it was clear he was trying to drive me into Wisconsin from St. Paul. Coming from the north to the south, you should not be anywhere near going east. But in my case, my local knowledge saved me time, allowed me to get another driver who was not going to be sneaky in that way. And the new driver was like, "What are you doing all the way over here? East side of St. Paul. What are you doing over here?" I said, and then I explained the story of what happened. He's like, "Oh yeah, I know what happened." The driver thought the previous driver was trying to take advantage of you and was assuming that you didn't know anything about the local area, but you did. And you were able to point out that he made wrong turns deliberately, by the way, to take you out of the way. He was trying to squeeze extra money out of you to enrich his pockets. Now, with the way upfront pricing works these days on the Uber platform, it wouldn't have changed how much I paid, but it would change, absolutely soar and escalate how much he got paid. I looked on a map and I think I knew what his intention was, but because I called 911 and the state patrol ordered him to drop me off, I was able to call another Uber driver and get that taken care of. The other thing that Uber support was able to take care for me on that one after that situation was that they were able to cancel. They refunded me that first trip entirely. I only had to pay for the second one. For the leg where the driver actually dropped me off in the right spot and actually took the right route. Local knowledge means everything. And again, when I was taking the trip home Monday afternoon, the Uber app was trying to tell this driver to go a circular route to get back to my house once you got off the freeway into my town. And I just shook my head like, no. Don't turn left here. Turn right here. Make the next right and you'll be almost there immediately. And she thanked me for that. Because she's like, "Okay, I'm glad you live here." I said, "Yes, I live here and I have for the last 4 years. I've lived in Forest Lake for the last 4 years." I knew she wasn't familiar with the trip, with the location, because she told me up front she had never been to Forest Lake. For any reason. So when I caught the Uber nav trying to get her a different direction, I was able to set her straight and she thanked me for it. Tipped her well, of course. Why not? She actually listened to my direction and got me to where I needed to be, fully admitting that she has no knowledge of this area whatsoever. Whereas, of course, I do. I live here. So again, in this app game, local knowledge means the world. The navs and the apps don't possess it. We, as the drivers, do. So here's what I say. Don't always obey the nav, because the navigation, particularly in Uber, is going to be tricky. They're going to try to give you the shortest route, but not necessarily the fastest route. Or in the case of this Uber X driver yesterday, it didn't even give the shortest route. It just gave a route. It didn't even give the shortest route. It gave a longer time, longer mileage route. I don't know how they do that or why they do that. If anybody has any insight on that, I'd appreciate it in the comments below. But that's the short of it. Local knowledge means everything. My challenge to you today is to use it. Do not be afraid to use it. Do not be afraid to defy the directions. Do not be afraid to take this knowledge and use it towards your acceptance rates. Again, I live in Forest Lake, Minnesota. We have some of the longest restaurant wait times in the country. We average 12 minutes per restaurant per stop. Obviously, you've got some laggards there that are dragging down the average for the entire town. But you want to know which ones those are. You want to track that stuff. You want to track your wait times. You want to track what's going on in your market. And do not be afraid to use it to your advantage, because there's actually no rules against it. There's no rules that say you have to take the route that they prescribe you, by the way. Uber Nav is largely optional. You can even opt into Google Maps if you prefer that way. So use your knowledge of your local market, whether you live there or not. that is my challenge for today. I will see you on the next go around. As always, peace out, homies.